Hello, beautiful people. Welcome back again to my channel. It's Oluwaseun here, and we are going to continue in our Jenkins series. Now, today, I want us to look at something, right, within the Jenkins pipeline. Now, here I have these, the pipeline we've looked at in the last video, how we deployed to EC2 instance, built an image, deployed the image to Docker Hub, and then pull that same image on an EC2 instance to run our application and all of that. Now in Jenkins, there is what you call script.groovy, which means all of this logic that we have defined inside of this pipeline, we can actually extract it out into another script called the script.groovy, which means all the stages that we have defined here, all those commands here will not be in the Jenkins file, right? It's going to be extracted outside of the Jenkins file and be put into a script called script.groovy. Now, in the GitLab CICD series that we did, I'm going to put the link to that video in the description, and I'm going to link it up somewhere here as well. Now, in that series, we looked at what you call the CI template, all right, in GitLab, okay? When we looked at the concept of poly repo. Is that okay? Now, in the GitLab CI/CD, you can actually extract out, your configuration into what you call a template file that, GitLab uses, okay? Now, inside of the template file is where you have all of the logic, right? All the commands, all the things you want to execute, you have them inside of the template file, okay? So for example, if I click on this deploy to Kubernetes, I can see all the commands and everything that I want to, execute, all right, inside of my Kubernetes cluster or whatever, or what I want to deploy to my Kubernetes cluster. Now, that is the template. Now, if you go back and then you look at all the other, folders, for example, the front-end application that we want to deploy, if you look at the GitLab CI, which is similar to your Jenkins file, you would realize that, there really is nothing here, right? You don't have any command here. You only have the stages and then some variables that you define, right? The template is, the pipeline script is clean, readable. All right. No, too many things are not here, just simple things. But of course, if you look at what you have here, you have what you call the include keyword. So that include keyword is basically what is used to say that, GitLab, this is where my configuration file, all right, so look into this particular folder. So you can see that here we are saying project. And we're saying the project is inside of this repo, this is the folder, the project is inside of, all right, the branch is main, and then these are the two files that we want you to load and then, run for us. So what GitLab will simply do is to take a look at these two files and then execute those two files, right? So now in Jenkins, you also have something like that. But in Jenkins, what you use is what you call script.groovy, which means you have a script, and then inside of that script, you extract all of this logic, all the things that we define here inside of that script. All right, we define all of that inside of the script, and then right here in the Jenkins pipeline, we only specify how to load that script, and then we just call them as function. Okay, so let me show you what I'm talking about. So now I already did that, so let me just show you what I'm talking about. So I'm going to do git switch. So I'm going to switch to another branch where I have that already, and the name of the branch is Groovy. All right, now this is my Groovy branch, which I've loaded already. Now, if you look at that here, I have what you call script.groovy, right? So if I click on that script.groovy, you can see that everything here is being defined as a function. Okay, so I have dev. So the dev here in Jenkins basically means you want to define a function, right? Which you can call later. So here I have dev build image. Okay, if you look at what you have here, it is not different from what we have in the Jenkins pipeline before, right? It is basically us extracting all of the things in the Jenkins pipeline and then putting it here into a script, and the name of the script is what? Script.groovy. Okay, so we define a function called build image, and then the build image stage, we basically copied all of the commands there, and then we put it here. Okay, for the push image also, we copied all of the things in that, the push image stage, we copied everything here, and then we define a function called push image, and then we do what? We put it here. For the deploying to Docker Compose, or deploying with Docker Compose to our EC2 instance, we basically copied everything inside of that stage, and then we put it here, okay, and then we define that as a function. Okay, and then lastly, we have to specify this, return this. I mean, when you're dealing with programming language, sometimes you have to return something, right? You can't just leave it empty. Okay, for each of the languages that you deal with, they have, their own way of ending their file. They have their own way of terminating commands and all of that. Okay, all right. So now we extracted that. Now, if you look at what the Jenkins pipeline will look like, now here we have dev gv. So we are defining a function called gv. Okay. It can be any name really, but of course we're using groovy gv. Okay. Now here you will realize that here we have the stage called initialization. This stage is basically to load that script.groovy. So which is something similar to what you have here that says include. So in GitLab CICD, it is what? It is include. In Jenkins, it is what? Load. Okay, so I'm basically telling Jenkins that, oh, my logic, okay, all the commands I want to execute has been extracted into a particular script. So this script is what you should load. So load that script and then execute all the functions that I've defined in that script for me. Is that okay? But of course, if you look at GitLab CI/CD, that one says what? Include. So it's just a concept that we have to understand. All right. Now, if you scroll down, so for the build image, what am I simply doing? I'm basically saying gv.build image. So I'm basically calling that function. All right. I'm basically calling this function here. All right. So this function is what I'm calling. Okay. So gv.build image. So it's calling up that function for me. And then if you scroll down to push image, I'm basically doing the same thing. Deploy compose, I'm doing the same thing. Now you can see how clean my Jenkins pipeline looks like. Now, what are the benefits of using, this kind of approach? Number one, it makes your pipeline script look clean. It doesn't look cluttered. Okay. And then it makes it also manageable, right? And one of the things that is also, useful for is that this particular script can also be shared among, many pipelines, right? If you have many pipelines that, you want to run something, you can use this particular script and then share it among the different pipelines. And then when you want to do any kind of maintenance management, you want to update your, pipeline commands and pipeline script, it is easier because you just come here and edit whatever it is you want to edit. You don't have to come here to do anything major, except maybe you have another stage that you want to build, and then you can come here and just add the stage and then call the function from here. Is that okay? So it makes your pipeline look very neat, not cluttered. All right. I mean, everything is, crisp, clean, readable. Okay. People can understand what you have to do. And then whatever maintenance, whatever addition, whatever subtraction you want to do will be from here. And if you look at this one also, I mean, it's also very clear, right? You have dev build image. You are defining your commands here. I mean, there are not too many curly braces and everything. I mean, it's clear, it's clean. We can actually understand what we're trying to do right here. Is that okay? So that is the importance of extracting your logic into another script called script.groovy. Okay. Of course, we're going to run this. So let's run these and let's see, how it works. Okay. Let's be sure that we know what we're doing. All right. So I'm going to go over to my EC2 instance, and then I'm going to start up all the two, servers. Now, one thing I want to also show us here, the reason why I didn't start my Jenkins server is that I wanted to show us something. Now, I realized, recently that when you run your Jenkins server, now you're going to install your Jenkins server with, the initial, public IP. Okay. Now, one thing I observed is that by the time you stop your Jenkins server and then you start it up again, now it becomes very slow. Okay. And I've been wondering, what's the issue? Why is it very slow? And then it just, occurred to me, all right, that, let me just go over to the system settings, and then the new IP address, I basically replaced it. And all of a sudden I realized that the Jenkins server became, very responsive again. Okay. And that is the reason why I didn't start it. I wanted to start it and show us how you can also do that in case, you're doing something with Jenkins and then you discover that after some time you stop and then you start it again and then it's becoming slow. Sometimes you can think it's your network, but I just realized that it's not, it has nothing to do with your network. It's just basically the IP address that changes. When you stop an EC2 instance and you start it up again, the IP address changes because the IP address we're using is an ephemeral IP. So at every point in time when you stop and start your server, it basically changes. Okay. And of course, I want to advise that you go with an elastic IP because I think there's a charge that comes with that. Okay. But what we can do is that we can log in into the Jenkins server. All right. And then we can, just change the IP address to solve that particular issue. Okay. So that is what I thought to show us. All right. So I'm going to wait for this to let's allow this to, I just want the status check to come up to 3/3, and then we'll go right in and then do that. Right. So our instances are up. So let's connect to the Jenkins server. So I'm going to grab the public IP, and then I'm going to put that here, column 8080. Now, if you observe, you will realize that, it's kind of slow. Okay. If you look at it, the signing in page is kind of slow and all of that. Now, that is not because of my network. And that is what I'm trying to also help us to understand, that it has to do with IP, because the IP address on the Jenkins server is different from the IP that we have now. Is that okay? So it's going to take some time to load up and all of that. So I'm going to sign in. All right. I'm going to sign, and now you can see also that the signing in is taking some time and all of that. So, just observe what is going on, so that, if you're encountering the same issue, okay, you understand that it has nothing to do with, your internet. It's just, the change in IP address. Okay. So let's just allow it to, do whatever it wants to do. So I'm going to grab the IP again, go to dashboard. All right. And I'm going to click on manage Jenkins. Okay. All right, I'm going to click on Manage Jenkins, and then you can see that it's also still very slow. Okay, just hold on. I'm going to show you something. By the time we change the IP address, you will see how fast, all right, the Jenkins server will become. Okay, you're going to see how fast it becomes. So let's just wait, allow it to, roll and process whatever it wants to process. I'm going to click on System. So under System is where you can change your IP address and some other things. Okay. Now, another approach would have been to use an elastic IP, but like I said, that comes with a cost, which I don't think is necessary. All right, in this case, since we're just trying our hands on things and all of that. So spending an extra cent or dollar on an elastic IP, I don't think is necessary. All right. So I'm going to come right here, and then I'm going to replace the IP address right here. Okay. And then I'm going to save that. Now watch something will happen. Now let me click on save. Now look at how fast that is. Right. Now let me click on manage Jenkins. All right. Look at how fast that is. Let me click on systems. Look at how fast the response is now. So it tells you that it's an issue with, all right, the IP, not your network. Okay, so if you're having that issue, now you know that it's nothing to do with your network. It is just the IP address. So just go ahead and change the IP. Anytime you're logging into Jenkins, just quickly change the IP address, and then so that you can work with your Jenkins, in a better way and all of that. All right. So I just thought to, show us that. Okay. So let's basically just push this to the repo. And let's see what's going to happen, all right, with this new, approach that we have, that we're trying to use. Okay. So I'm going to come back here, click on dashboard. I'm going to say new item. So let's just call this Groovy. All right. And then I'm going to say pipeline, and then OK. All right. And I'm going to come here to my GitHub page. I'm going to grab the URL of the repo. All right, and I'm going to come here and say, let it be triggered automatically. Then pipeline script from SCM, it's going to be Git. All right, and then the repo URL is going to be this. So the branch now is going to be the Groovy branch. All right, so Groovy. So that's the name of the branch. All right, so if you come here, and then you can see the Groovy branch. All right, right here. Okay, so that's the branch. Okay, and then I'm going to come here, and then I'll say save. All right, we need to change a few things. So the IP address of the Jenkins server has changed. So that means we have to go to GitHub, click on settings here, and then go to webhooks. All right, and we need to edit this webhook. So I'm going to use my password. All right, and then I'm going to replace this, all right, with the new IP address. Okay, and then I'm going to say update webhook. And that's all I have to do there. And then I'll come back to my instance. Then my Docker server, I need to also grab that. All right. And then copy the IP address because it has changed. And then I can come back to my pipeline right here and then replace the IP address with the new one. Okay. So I think that's the only thing that we have to do. Okay. And then I can come here now and just push to this repo. So I'm going to say git. All right, commit -am, okay, to just add and commit at the same time. All right, I'm going to say EC2 IP updated. Okay. and then let's push, all right, to the Groovy branch. All right, so we have pushed to that branch, and then if I come here to Jenkins, automatically my pipeline will be triggered. Okay, that's the beauty of the webhook. So the pipeline has been triggered. So we're just going to wait for this pipeline to build, run, and do whatever it has to do. Now, the pipeline is likely to fail. Okay, but let's wait and see what happens. All right, the pipeline is likely to fail because we didn't change something. Okay, that has to do with the Docker Compose. All right, so let's wait and see that. All right, so the init, the build image, now you can see that the function is actually working. So the init worked, the build image works, so that means it was able to call that function. And the push image is also, all right, going to work. It's pushing the image to Docker Hub, but the deploy compose is, let's take a look at what happens. It might fail, it might not fail, but now it didn't fail. Okay, now why did it not fail? Why do you think it did not fail? Now, let me show you why it did not fail. Now, if you come here to Docker Compose, now we have Oluwaseun a/test-docker3. Okay, that's what we have here. Now, the reason why it did not fail was because there is an image by that name in my, all right, Docker Compose. All right, in my Docker Hub rather. Okay, there's a name, there's an image name by that, all right, by that name. Okay, that's why it did not fail, because it was able to find an image by that name and then it pulled it automatically and then it ran with that. Okay, but that is not what we want to do. Okay, because the name of our project here is Groovy. Okay, and that is what we've been using. Because if you look at the Jenkinsfile or the script.groovy, we're basically using the image registry, the job name, and the build number. All right. So normally it was supposed to be something like, it was supposed to be the image registry / Groovy, which is the job name. Okay, the job name is Groovy and the build number is number 1. Okay, but because it was able to find an image in my Docker Hub, now it ran successfully. It did not fail at all. Okay, so what we can do here is we can go back to Docker Compose and update this. All right, and say this should be Groovy. Okay, :2. Right, that's going to be the new image name. Okay, so that's going to be the new image name, because if you go over to your Docker Hub, let me go to Docker Hub so that I can show you these things so that you can understand it better. If I go to my Docker Hub, I can see that I have an image by the name Groovy. Okay, and then the build is what? The build is 1, right? So I can update that right here. Now, in the next video, I'm going to show you how you can actually obtain this value dynamically without add coding in there, because like I told us in the previous videos, this is actually not best practice. Okay, you have to be able to obtain your image name dynamically from the pipeline. All right, so as the build is going on, the Docker Compose is also able to fetch, all right, the latest image, okay, from the pipeline. Is that okay? So we're going to look at that in the next video. But for now, let's go ahead and push again. Now, remember, the Docker Compose is supposed to stop all the containers and then start up again, right? So let's commit again, and then, all right, let's just say Docker Compose image name updated. So let's push again. All right, so this time around it's going to be build number 2. Okay, so if I go back here, all right, I can see the pipeline has been triggered again. So of course, this is build number 2. The job name is Groovy, so that's going to work. So what will happen is that it's going to stop all the previous containers and then it's going to run with a new container. So you can see the build image didn't take time because the image has been built before. And the push image should also not take time because the image has already been pushed before. So the deploy compose might take a little while because it will stop the previous containers and then start up with the new container. So you can see that took like 9 seconds, okay, compared to the 5 seconds it took here, because it has to stop and then start the container. So if I click here now, all right, and I look at the console output, all right, so I'm going to see what happened. We've seen all of these ones before, building the image, pushing the image, right? And then if you look at what you have here, so you can see that it stopped all of the containers, removed all of them because of the down command that we had at the beginning. And then it basically did what? It basically pulled the new image, all right, and created it and started it. Okay, so now if I go back to my Docker, all right, page, and I come here and I put in new IP address, I should be able to access, all right, my instance. Now you can see my application is accessible and all of that. So the idea is to show us how to extract your, all right, pipeline logic into what you call a Groovy script, and then use that instead of, putting everything in your Jenkins pipeline to make your Jenkins pipeline a little bit lightweight, a little bit readable, all right, and clean, all right, without any kind of, cluttering and all of that. Is that okay? So that is the importance or the goal of this video. Okay, so in the next video, we're going to look at how Docker Compose can obtain this image name dynamically without us having to add code, right, the values right here.